Teaching is something that I'm crazy about, but using technology in instructionally sound ways to increase student productivity and success is something that is a true passion of mine. I want to talk with you guys about how to implement the flipped classroom. Before we get started too good, what exactly do we mean when we talk about a flipped classroom? I mean, that sounds so trendy and such a buzzword these days. Well, what we're talking about is we are trying to front load instruction basically through the delivery of content. Most of the time we associate the flip with students go home and they watch it online instructional videos based in the topic that they're studying. But it's not just with videos, this also can be reading materials or reading assignments. It's also important to note that there are basically 3 different types of use of technology that people refer to on a regular basis. And when they talk about flipped instruction, they're actually talking about a form of blended instruction, which means that students spend some of their time in brick and mortar and some of their time doing online instruction, whether they're in the classroom or at home. A flipped classroom is not the same as online classroom, which is where they do nothing but material online and never actually sit face to face with the instructor and with their peers. Lastly, there is just straight brick and mortar, which is a traditional classroom setting. So now that you know what a flipped classroom is, should you be doing it? Really and truly, whether or not you should be doing a flipped classroom depends on you. It shouldn't really depend on what other people say or how it's successful for other teachers. What teachers do that is most effective in their classroom is something that can be bought into by their students and sold by that teacher. So if you can't convincingly sell the classroom, the flipped classroom instruction model to your students, then there's no point in doing it. Do what you're good at. If you take interest in technology and you want to try something new and revolutionary using what's out there and what most students have access to in some form or fashion, then maybe the flipped classroom is for you. And I want to give you a little bit of tips on how to go about doing this. First, it is all about presentation. Right? You have to develop a skill for presenting into a camera, whether that's a screencast and you're using audio to present PowerPoints, or whether you're doing like I'm doing right now and talking onto a GoPro camera from your car. The important thing to know though about flipped instruction is that you're not going to be awesome at it the first time you do it. You remember Little League baseball and soccer and karate and all that stuff? Remember how you weren't good at those things? Well, you're not going to be good at flipped instruction either until after some time has passed. That said, you really don't need to have flawless, perfect videos. You can mix something that's got a few ums in it or a few stutters or whatever it is, and it still come out to be an effective and productive video. Flipped classroom instruction is something that can absolutely cost you a ton of money, but it's also something that can be completely scot-free. Most practitioners of the flipped classroom model use a form of screen capture software. Most of these are either completely free or extremely inexpensive. One really good example is Screencast-O-Matic. I've seen plenty and have used plenty of flipped instruction videos that have used that software. Another good one that people use is Explain Everything, which is an iPad app. Now, I have used Explain Everything with one of my test review videos on my YouTube channel, and I didn't really care for it. It took me a huge amount of time to make a screen capture video, but it is something that I've seen a lot of people that do flipped instruction use and seem to like pretty well. And I guess if you get good at it like you would Screencast-O-Matic or anything else, it's going to be something you can put to practice and make out pretty quick. Which brings me to one of the other important points about flipped instruction is that when you first start doing it, it's going to take you a huge amount of time. But back whenever I made screen capture videos, I was able to cover a 40-minute lecture in about 20 to 25 minutes if I put it into a computer screen. The benefit of this for your students is that now they don't have to interrupt class to ask you questions that everybody else might understand. If they're missing something, they can simply go back in the video, rewatch it, and then they might understand the concepts, and if not, they can discuss it with friends or with you in the classroom setting. The last thing I'm going to discuss in this particular video is how you present the material is incredibly important, and you have to make it accessible to your students and preferably accessible to every single one of your students. The way I go about doing this is I have a YouTube channel which I maintain and which I share with other people, but I also have Edpuzzle, which is what I use to quiz students to hold them accountable for the videos. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, Mr. Fella, how in the world am I going to get them to watch the videos? If they don't want to watch them, they're not going to. And then my class goes, boom! Been there, done that. But think of it like this. If your students are already not doing their homework, they're probably not going to go home and watch your videos. With this in mind, what I've done is I present my flipped classroom specifically to my AP Human Geography students. Those are the go-getters. Those are the ones that are in competition with each other based on their academics, and they are going to watch the video and do everything they can to stay up to date, for the most part. Just like you have to get good at presenting material through the flipped classroom, students have to get good at using the flipped model to learn as well. If you use something like Edpuzzle to quiz your students, it allows you to go in and put in questions in particular parts of your video, and you might be asking students to reference something from the video, or even in some cases I might ask them to go online and find more information about the topic at hand so that they can have a rich understanding of content before you come in class and need to know it for quizzes or for daily assignments or for group projects. I highly recommend you use something like Edpuzzle when you consider your own flipped instruction. Something else you want to think about is that using Edpuzzle, you can normally show YouTube videos actually in school despite school protections. Now, what about those lower level learners, the ones that are never going to go home and do homework or watch instructional videos? Well, I teach them too. And what I do is I don't flip my classroom with them. Remember, flipped instruction is another form of blended instruction, but I do still sometimes have them watch videos in the same format using Edpuzzle, except in the classroom, as a form of differentiated instruction. So there are certainly things you can do to bring some of the elements of flipped instruction to your lower level learners as well, but I wouldn't do a straight up flip with them, at least in my experience. And finally, to wrap up this video, I'm just going to tell you straight up that this is going to be one of probably 3 videos I make on how I do flipped instruction. You always want to keep your videos as short as possible. The ones that last 15, 20, 25 minutes are the ones your students are going to dread. The ones that are between 5 and maybe 10 or 12, most of my videos are between 9 and 12 minutes, then those are the ones that students are more likely to go home and watch, and even in some cases, watch in and of their own interest. Stay tuned for part 2. Hope you enjoyed my video. Like, subscribe, share. You know the drill. Peace.